Hi everyone, I'm Joel A, and this is something that I think I'm going to call Pop Culture Christ Cam. It's an opportunity for me to talk about some of the things that I've been reading, watching, consuming this week, and also talk about some of the interconnections I have with Jesus, which is something I'm really passionate about. So you're either watching this on Pop Culture Christ, my website, or on my YouTube channel. Great to see you. If I haven't met you before, this is what I look like. Sorry to disappoint you. So, what have I been checking out this week? Well, first of all, I finished watching Kamen Kuuga this week, which is a Japanese kids superhero show from 2000. It's part of the Kamen Rider series. It was the first of what is called the Heisei era of Kamen Rider, and I really loved it. It took me a while to get into it. I felt it was a bit underwritten and a bit too simplistic. But as the tension built up, I mean, this goes for 50 episodes, or 49, 50 if you count the specials, etc. It builds up this tension with these serial-killing monsters. I know, Japanese kids shows, who could tell? And there's this real tension building up because the lead character, as he becomes stronger, is worried that he'll actually become like the monsters that he's fighting. And it ends brilliantly. I loved it. I'll definitely watch it again once the TV Nihon subs are completed. I'm not getting too much subs at the moment. But I'm really curious with tokusatsu shows. I'm seeing this more and more as I'm watching them. Is this Japanese idea of protecting people's smiles. And I'm trying to get my head around that. And I'd be really interested if there's any tokusatsu fans out there or Japanese fans who are able to talk to me about what protecting the smiles of the people means in the Japanese context. I'm really curious about that worldview. The other thing I've been checking out this week is this week's comics, and the big event is the X-Men Battle of the Atom. Now, in X-Men recently, the original X-Men have travelled into our present. That's causing all kinds of problems, and now in this big crossover event, the X-Men from the future are also here. It's a big mess, and that's the big event that's going to be occurring across 4 different X-Men books. Now, I haven't been a big fan of what Bendis has done with the X-Men so far, so I've avoided Brian Michael Bendis' X-Men stuff. But because this crossover is interacting with Wolverine and the X-Men by Aaron, that I really love, I've been checking it out. And sorry, Battle of the Atom has not changed my mind on Bendis and X-Men. I'm looking forward to see what happens, mainly on how it impacts with Wolverine and the X-Men. So that's what's going on. And the last thing is another comic book, Batman 66. So each week, digital comics, DC Comics have been releasing something called Batman 66, taking the 1960s Batman TV series and all the campiness and colour and biff bang boom, all that stuff, and putting it into a comic book, and it's been brilliant each week. And what they did in the first arc and what they're doing now in the current arc is that they're motion comics, if you will, that as you tap the screen each time, new things appear on the screen, colours change, there's explosions. I'm loving it. The Mad Hatter arc at the moment in England is fantastic. I'm loving the ridiculousness of it. Batman 66 is a great series, you should check it out. What I want to talk about is, here in Australia, tomorrow, it's election day for our federal election to vote who will represent us in federal parliament and who will be our Prime Minister of Australia. And as a Christian in Australia, the 2 major parties are really doing a great job of turning me off. Looking at the policies of both parties, I'm really struggling about who I want to vote for least. They've both got policies that I don't really support. But what really reminds me, we've got Kevin Rudd and we've got Tony Abbott. Now, I'm picturing from one of my favourite comic books called Transmetropolitan. So I've brought Transmetropolitan here with me. It's set in the future. It's about a journalist who's covering the election, and we have 2 candidates who he's nicknamed the Beast and the Smiler. Now, the Beast is the current American president, and no one really likes him. He seems like he's done a terrible job. Everyone hates him. Even his own kids call him the Beast. And then you've got the person on the other party, the Smiler, who looks happy, but doesn't seem to have any policies and doesn't seem to represent anything. And as it turns out, as the series progresses, we find out that he is a terrible, terrible person, but hidden behind that facade of the Smiler. Now, I'm not going to tell you who I think is the Smiler and who is the beast in Australian politics, but I'm definitely getting that vibe from our two major parties. I don't really want to vote for either of them. But what I do know as a Christian is that I need to be praying for them. So in 1 Timothy chapter 2, this is what Paul has to say to young Timothy. Bible. I urge you then, first of all, that requests, prayers, intercession and thanksgiving be made for everyone, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. That's what I'm going to be praying for this Saturday. I'm praying that the person that does get put in as Prime Minister of Australia brings us peace, brings us holiness, brings us opportunities to worship God. I'm praying that there won't be policies put in place that make it difficult to be a Christian in Australia, even more so than it is. I'm praying that the persecution and strife we're seeing in other nations in the world won't be here in Australia. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter really who gets in control of Australia, because ultimately God is in control. And nothing that the Prime Minister of Australia can do, no matter how powerful he or she may be, nothing they can do can wreck God's plan for this world. God is in complete control. Thanks for checking out Pop Culture Christ Cam. If you'd like to leave comments, for a change I might actually read YouTube comments if you leave one. I'd like to hear about what you're checking out, what pop culture things you'd like to hear me talk about, all those kind of things. See you next week.